The sole witnesses of the glory of Mary in this beatific vision of the sacraments then again revealed to her of the divine effect that overflowed into her most pure soul was God, the author of this unheard of wonder, and the astounded angels, who in some measure perceived these mysteries in God himself. The Queen, seated at the side of the Lord, who was to be her Son, and seeing him face to face, was more successful in her prayer than Bethsabee, for she prayed that he bestow the untouched Sunamite Abisag, his inaccessible divinity, upon his sister, human nature. She prayed that his promised coming from heaven to the earth and his marriage with human nature by the hypostatic union be fulfilled in the person of the Word. Many times had he pledged himself to it among men through the ancient patriarchs and prophets, and now Mary besought him to accelerate the reparation of the human race, expected for so many ages amid the multiplied iniquity and the ruin of souls. The Most High heard this most pleasing petition of his mother, and acting more graciously than Solomon of old toward his mother, he assured her that soon his promises should be fulfilled, and that he should descend to the world in order to assume and redeem human nature. In this divine consistory and tribunal of the Most Holy Trinity, it was determined to give a name to the child queen. As there is no proper and legitimate name, except it be found in the immutable being of God himself, for from it are participated and determined according to their right weight and measure all things in infinite wisdom, His Majesty wished himself to give and impose that name in heaven. He thereby made known to the angelic spirits that the three divine persons had decreed and formed the sweet names of Jesus and Mary for the Son and Mother from the beginning before the ages, and that they had been delighted with them and had engraved them on their eternal memories to be, as it were, the objects for whose service they should create all things. Being informed of these and many other mysteries, the holy angels heard a voice from the throne speaking in the person of the Father. Our chosen one shall be called Mary, and this name is to be powerful and magnificent. Those that shall invoke it with devout affection shall receive most abundant graces. Those that shall honor it and pronounce it with reverence shall be consoled and vivified, and will find in it the remedy of their evils, the treasures for their enrichment, the light which shall guide them to heaven. It shall be terrible against the power of hell. It shall crush the head of the serpent, and it shall win glorious victories over the princes of hell. The Lord commanded the angelic spirits to announce this glorious name to Saint Anne, so that what was decreed in heaven might be executed on earth. The heavenly child, lovingly prostrate before the throne, rendered most acceptable and human thanks to the eternal being, and she received the name with most admirable and sweet jubilation. If the prerogatives and graces which she then was favored with were to be described, it would necessitate an extra book of many volumes. The holy angels honored and acknowledged Most Holy Mary as the future Mother of the Word and as their Queen and Mistress, enthroned at the right hand of her Son. They showed their veneration of her holy name, prostrating themselves as it proceeded from the throne in the voice of the Eternal Father, especially those who had it written on the devises over their breast. All of them gave forth canticles of praise for these great and hidden mysteries. In the meanwhile, the infant queen remained ignorant of the real cause of all that she thus experienced, for her dignity of mother of the incarnate Word was not revealed to her till the time of the incarnation. With the same reverential jubilee did the angels return in order to replace her into the arms of Holy Anne, to whom this event remained a secret, as was also the absence of her daughter, for a guardian angel, assuming an aerial body, supplied her place for this very purpose. More than that, during a great part of the time in which the heavenly child remained in the empyrean heaven, her mother was wrapped in an ecstasy of highest contemplation, and in it, although she did not know what was happening to the child, exalted mysteries concerning the dignity of Mother of God, to which she was to be chosen, were revealed to her. The prudent matron kept them enshrined within her breast, conferring them in her thoughts with the duties she owed to her child. On the 8th day after the birth of the great queen, multitudes of most beautiful angels in splendid array descended from on high, bearing an escutcheon on which the name of Mary was engraved and shone forth in great brilliancy. Appearing to the Blessed Mother Anne, they told her that the name of her daughter was to be Mary, which name they had brought from heaven, and which divine providence had selected and now ordained to be given to their child by Joachim and herself. The saint called for her husband, and they conferred with each other about this disposition of God in regard to the name of their daughter. The more than happy father accepted the name with joy and devout affection. They decided to call their relatives and a priest, and then, with much solemnity and festivity, they imposed the name of Mary on their child. The angels also celebrated this event with most sweet and ravishing music, which, however, was heard only by the mother and her most holy daughter. Thus was the divine princess named by the Holy Trinity, in heaven on the day of her nativity, and on earth after 8 days. This name was written in the list of other names, when her mother presented herself at the temple according to the law, as I will relate further on. This was the birth like to which none had been before, and the like of which cannot again happen in mere creatures. This was the most blessed birth of which nature was capable, for by it an infant came into existence, whose entrance into the world was not only free from all impurities of sin, but who was more pure and holy than the highest seraphim. The birth of Moses was celebrated on account of the beauty and handsomeness of the infant. All his beauty was only corruptible and apparent. But, oh, how beautiful is our great child! Oh, how beautiful! She is entirely beautiful and most sweet in her delights, since she is possessed of all grace and beauty, without being wanting in any. The laughter and the joy of the house of Abraham was the birth of the promised Isaac, conceived in a sterile womb. But this joy was great only because it foreshadowed and was derived from the birth of our infant queen, toward which all this joy of Abraham was only a step. If that birth was so admirable and full of joy for the family of the patriarch, because it was a foreshadowing of the birth of sweetest Mary. Heaven and earth should rejoice at the birth of her who gave a beginning to the restoration of heaven and the sanctification of the world. When Noah was born, his father Lamech was consoled, because in that son God had provided a progenitor of the human race in the ark, and assured a restoration of the blessings which the sins of men had forfeited. But all this happened merely as a type to foreshadow the birth of this child, who was to be the true reparatrix, being the mystical ark which contained the new and true Noah, and which drew him down from heaven, who was to fill with benediction all the inhabitants of the earth. O blessed birth, O joyful nativity, the most pleasing to the Blessed Trinity in all the ages of the past, the joy of the angels, the relief of sinners, the delight of the just, and the singular consolation of all the holy souls in limbo. O precious and rich pearl, that didst come forth to the light of the sun, still enclosed within the rough shell of this world. O sublime infant, who, though scarcely noticed by terrestrial eyes in the material light, yet, in the eyes of the highest king and his courtiers, excellest all that is not God in dignity and grandeur. All generations bless thee, all the nations recognize and praise thy grace and beauty. Let the earth be made illustrious by thy birth. Let mortals be rejoiced, because their mediatrix is born, who will fill up the vast emptiness of original sin. Let thy gracious condescension toward me be blessed and extolled, who am the most abject dust and ashes. If thou givest me permission, O my Lady, to speak in thy presence, I will propose a doubt which occurred to me in describing the mystery of thy most admirable and holy birth, namely, regarding an act of the Almighty at the hour of thy coming forth into the material light. And this is the doubt. How are we to understand thy being raised in thy body by the hands of the holy angels into the empyrean heavens and to the vision of God? For, according to the teaching of the Holy Church and her doctors, heaven was closed and, as it were, interdicted to man, until thy most holy Son should open it through his life and death, and until he himself, as Redeemer and Chief, should enter it on the day of his admirable ascension, he being the first one for whom these eternal portals were to be opened after their being closed up by sin.